Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com with Ripe for Reissue. And this was, again, another one of the recordings that you suggested I talk about, and I am more than happy to do so. It is Leonard Bernstein's Sibelius cycle. Now, this cycle has been out in many ways, and talking about it, really gives us an opportunity to consider just how strange and demented the industry was, and still is, because the major labels, what we call the major labels, which were EMI, RCA, Sony, and the Universal Group, which was Decca, Philips, and Deutsche Grammophon. Those are basically your major labels, but they've all been compacted into three sort of organizations. There's Sony RCA, and then there's the Universal Group, which is Decca and DG, Decca having absorbed Philips. And then there's the Warner Group, which is EMI and Teldec and all of those associated labels. So there are these three big juggernauts, and they are international in scope. And so you would think, now that they have all this stuff gathered under three handy-dandy convenient roofs, they would put together a international release. They would go through their catalog. They would have their basic pile of stuff that would be available everywhere because they have the distribution. They have the facilities. They have the streaming services. They have everything that can do it. But when it comes to classical music, forget it. What's happened and what's made things is just unbelievably strange is that the local offices have the opportunity to do things for their local market. And in Japan, for example, everything is totally different. Japan has always been a law unto itself when it comes to CD releases. And so when you consider the Bernstein Sibelius stuff, you had, first of all, talk about the big Bernstein boxes. Naturally, they're in there. The Symphonies box or something like that. But then again, there was originally the Bernstein Royal Edition. Remember that edition of the horrible watercolors by Prince Charles? That had this Sibelius cycle. There was also a French Sony edition called Répertoire something or whatever, I don't know, that had this edition. And then there is this edition. And now which is out of print, by the way, which is why I'm doing this talk. And now, looking at Amazon, I see that there is, for $60, another version of this that I suspect is coming out of Japan or someplace in the Far East. I'm not sure. It's expensive. It's an import. It's not domestic. And what they have on streaming services, I have no clue. No clue whatsoever. So I'm not saying that these things aren't available. Pieces of this were available on Essential Classics. There are LPs coming back. There are bits. It is such an unbelievable mess. And all they need to do is have this and make sure it's available, because anybody who's interested in Bernstein Sibelius will probably want all of it. Now, as we all know, Bernstein started to redo his Sibelius cycle with the Vienna Philharmonic on Deutsche Grammophon. Those performances are uniformly inferior to these. He only got through 1, 5, and 7. 1 is the best of them. It's a big, slowish, but very romantic and magisterial performance. It's okay, but the sound isn't that great. It's very dry. 5 and 7 are just awful. They are sluggish and inflated and dead on the vine. They really, really are. I mean, some people I know like them. I've said it again. I don't care. I don't want to know that you like them. You have to compare these versions with all the other stuff that's out there and Bernstein with himself. And at least we need to describe what's happening accurately. And in those performances, no one is having a good day. Let's put it that way. If we could do that series, we could have the Great Artist Bad Day, Sibelius 5 and 7 with Bernstein in Vienna. But there's so much other Bernstein DG stuff that would fit in that category. Anyway, these are really splendid, and you are absolutely right to want them back and to want them made continuously available. The first is absolutely one of the best ever, hands down. The second is a very free, romantic interpretation. Bernstein's Sibelian credentials were established while he was, mentored by Serge Kouzovitsky, who was a great but also very romantic Sibelius conductor. Number 3 is fabulous. Number 4 is really, really good, but we notice that the strings are having some issues. There's some scruffy string playing in these performances. There really is. Bernstein was not a pedantic conductor when it came to that kind of accuracy. He was more interested in truthfulness of expression than in technical perfection. Sometimes he did went the other way, but But the 4th, it's still a very, very evocative and atmospheric performance. The 5th is absolutely one of the great ones. It always has been since the dawn of time. The 6th is, I think, you have to make allowance, again, for the string playing, especially the finale, which is a little scruffy. But Bernstein is one of the very, very few conductors who actually follows all of Sibelius's tempo indications. He really does, especially in the finale, which is marked to go very quickly, and nobody takes it that way, but Bernstein does, especially that beautiful string apotheosis, which, I actually like to hear it a little slower because you hear more of what's going on in it, but it's marked like molto vivace or something like that, and Bernstein really, really blasts through it exactly the way Sibelius wants it done, according to the score. And I think that's really, really interesting. And then the 7th is one of the great 7ths. It's absolutely fantastic. Perfectly balanced and proportioned, beautifully played, and amazingly intense. It's a wonderful performance. And you also get one of the all-time great Pohjola's daughters. She's in here, the daughter of the North Country in English. And you get Luanatar with Phyllis Curtin, who was an amazing soprano, doing her best to sing in Finnish. And it is a strange performance of one of Sibelius's strangest works. I don't think anybody's going to say that's your favorite Luanatar, but they did it. And we should be proud of them. They really gave it a go. And let me see if there's anything else in here. I think we also get his shorter works too, like Finlandia and that stuff. But let me double check and make sure that we've got this all clear. Let's see. The Violin Concerto, pardon me, with Zeno Francescatti. That's on disc 6, coupled with the Bruch Violin Concerto as well, with Thomas Shippers conducting that. And then you've got the Grieg, Peer Gynt Suites 1 and 2, and Sibelius's Finlandia, Valse Triste, and the Swan of Tuonela, that thing. So there are these other things in addition. The whole thing works out in this box of 7 discs. They could have recoupled the whole thing to make it just Sibelius, but of course that would have cost money. It was much easier just to reprint everything else that they had already. Here it is. There they are. Here was that bargain basement Grieg Sibelius disc, and just stuff them in the box, which I don't care. As long as it's available, stuff away, keep it available. Bernstein was one of the great conductors. He was one of the great Sibelius. This is one of the great Sibelius cycles. It should be available. It is ripe for reissue in a normal way, not like in the sort of demented way we have to deal with it. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.